Chat, we have to talk about something. It is your Week 6 fantasy football recap. Okay, honestly, absolutely the other side of the spectrum as far as this weekend's games were concerned. It was a weekend of blowouts. It was a weekend of upsets. It was big scores. It was no scores. Absolutely crazy. However, here's the deal. My special segment that was planned for this week ended up bumping back on me to potentially next week, so stay tuned for that. However, we do have something that we have to address at the end of this video that we have to come together as a league to put an end to. All right, so without giving away, without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Game 1. So for the first game this week, we're gonna take a look at the Triple Dipper versus the Dirt Diggers. What I would consider one of the most boring, uneventful games because we all knew where this was going. Oscar is continuing on his tear with 54 points to my 50 points, walking away with the win, continuing his winning streak, and bringing his record up to 5-1. Can the kid be beat? Of course, he has Jalen Hurts doing Jalen Hurts things with 22 points, Christian McCaffrey staying healthy with his 24 points, and Devontae Adams only going out for 7. He had Drake London on the bench for 31. Could have been a healthy replacement. Didn't matter. I only walked away with 50 points. Of course, Dak Prescott throwing for 28. Javonte Williams only running for 8. And Amon-Ra for 13. Look, as the Cowboys fan here, I have to blame Amon-Ra. I have to. It has nothing to do with the fact that Javonte Williams only did half of what he was projected, and it has nothing to do with the fact that CeeDee Lamb is currently injured. However, he's allegedly coming off of the bench this week. We will be starting the Cowboys again this weekend. At least I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I might pick somebody up. You guys stay tuned for that. However, what it really comes down to is Oscar is unbeatable. The kid is looking insane. Only 4-point game. Not too bad of a blowout, though. Let's go on to the next one. One of the absolute blowouts, we had Stillwell versus Booze Clues, Phil versus Robert. Of course, Phil with 28 points versus Robert's 67 points, due most in part to the fact that Lamar Jackson is still out with an injury. We're expecting him to come back hopefully closer to the end of October, maybe just in time to get Phil a secured spot into the playoffs, but time will only tell. Of course, in the meantime, Phil had Jordan Love for 16, Jahmyr Gibbs just losing track of what day it was with 7 points, and Emeka Egbuka, God bless you, going out early with a hamstring injury, only getting Phil 4 points. Of course, Jamar Chase on the bench with 25. Very interesting choice. I don't know why we're not starting one of the number 1 receivers of the league, other than the fact that Joe Burrow's injured and the Bengals have looked kind of terrible. It's kind of a whole thing. However, across the other side of the line, we had Jaden Daniels for 27 points, Kyron Williams for 16 points, and Ladd McConkey for 23 points. Every piece of Robert's team is firing on all cylinders, looking very good this weekend. Of course, Drake May sitting on the bench with 33 points. There's comparisons to other quarterbacks and how he's the new shining star of New England. I know I trashed him a little bit last week in the recap, but maybe I'm eating my words here. Drake May is looking very good, especially compared to Jaden Daniels, who only had the 27 points. Blowout. All right, Robert's looking mean as hell. Phil is struggling to get through it. However, we'll see if he can turn around later on in the season. Let's go to the next one. On one of the nail-biting games, we had Winnie and the Jets versus Gravy Worms, Cody versus Summer, of course. This one coming down to Monday Night Football. Cody, I once again am asking for Josh Allen to do all of the work, and Josh Allen did. Although Buffalo did lose to the Falcons last night, and the last play of the game was Josh Allen throwing an interception. I was wondering if that was going to happen and if that interception was going to be enough negative points to get Summer that win. Unfortunately for her, Josh Allen did do enough on that drive to get him just above her. Cody walking away with 67 points to Summer's 65 points. Josh Allen with 19 points. Ashton Genty having a pretty standard week with 16. And George Pickens doing exactly what Cody hoped he would have done last week, being the wide receiver 1 for the Cowboys with 31 points. On the other side of the line, we had Pat Mahomes, the highest scorer of the weekend with 37 points. Jonathan Taylor going out for 23, and Garrett Wilson for 4. Definitely one of Summer's bigger problems, not to mention these 60 points she has sitting on the bench, which would have definitely been more than enough to get her over that hump over that edge. Would she have got to 100 points with this? I think the math checks out. Logan? Could you imagine having a game like her where you score 65 points, more than most other people in the league, and still manage to take a loss? But y'all already know what clip we need to run? And that's fantasy, baby. Which then leads us to the biggest devastation, the biggest upset of the weekend. We had Chum Bucket versus Baja Blasters, Sam versus Mason. 62 points for Sam to Mason's 58. This one also coming down to Monday Night Football with Debo Samuel needing 9 points for Mason's team to get the win. However, he just wet the bed, bro. Debo Samuel coming out with 5 points. Of course, the rest of Mason's team looking great. Jared Goff for 20, Josh Jacobs for 32. Given Nico Collins was on bye week, and that is the missing piece of Mason's magic formula. However, on the other side of the line, you got Sam's team is continuing to look very impressive with Baker Mayfield throwing for 23, Saquon Barkley having an off week with 8, and Najigba once again being what a sleeper pick for Sam, walking away with 30 points. DeAndre Swift on the bench for 25, of course. Not much else to talk about there other than the fact that really, yeah, man, we were watching the game on Monday night, praying Debo Samuel could make something happen. Sam came walking in. Mason had made the comment that he was like, I'm about to beat Sam, and she probably hasn't even looked at the app. Apparently, update for you guys, Sam has opened the app at least once in the past week, so rejoice for that one. We've got some progress there. However, she opened it just in time to see her just upset Mason. We got the I'm sorry text this morning. Mason, keep your head up. I know the record hurts. What are you gonna do? And on to the biggest blowout we have seen this season. Butt Dog versus Cheddar's Enjoyer, Paige versus Jakey. Paige's team was playing a different sport this weekend. Justin Fields for 4 points, J.K. Dobbins for 4 points, and O'Dunsey for 5 points. Meanwhile, the other side, you got Matt Stafford for 11, Bijan for 35, and Puka Nacua going out with an injury with 4. However, even with points like that, Jakey still devastated Paige, walking away with a win with his 51 points to Paige's 14, putting an end to her win streak and giving Jakey another one in the win column, bringing his record to 4-2. You love to see it. However, this brings us to something that is very, very important. All right, guys. So here's the deal. Paige is doing things. Paige is doing things. I don't even think Paige knows that she's doing things. So it's time for Paige No Ball, Paige No Fall. As we all know, Paige has adopted the strategy of picking up whichever quarterback is going to be playing the Dallas Cowboys that weekend. As the Dallas Cowboys fan, it's devastating. It's disrespectful. However, it dawned on me, I don't think y'all understand how effective that strategy has been for her. So yesterday I was told that she had texted Robert and she's trying to get Jaden Daniels off of him. That way she can start Jaden Daniels, who's playing the Cowboys next weekend. The conversation went a little something like this. What can I offer you in trade for Jaden Daniels? Of course, Robert saying, you have nothing I want, which he's not wrong. Paige saying, he's on your bench, bro. He's literally not. Also, I sounded hostile. Not my intention at all, LMAO. Paige saying Drake May is being compared to Tom Brady, which is shockingly true. You have a good quarterback. I'm hurting. I took that as hostility. Then, of course, Robert saying, I was hoping Drake May would have done last week what he did this week, and Logan called it an oversight, and I immediately put Jaden Daniels in from the bench. Paige commenting on the fact that I have too much power. Honestly, guys, run your own teams. I don't make the calls here. Yeah, I may actually put Drake May back in next week pending reports, but I'm keeping Jaden Daniels. Paige saying, bitch. All right. So, Robert then joins the party and follows that up with this lovely quote of, what, am I doing charity? I was needing a tax write-off. Absolute bars against Paige. We were all laughing, had a good time, Well, then I started thinking about it, right? And I was like, what? This week, Paige got blown out by Jakey. It was also the first week that she didn't pick up the quarterback that's playing the Cowboys. So I thought to myself, well, how well did Bryce Young, the quarterback for the Panthers, do? Come to find out, Bryce Young, it was the second highest score that he has had the entire season with 24 points. So that really got me thinking. Now I'm like thinking, okay, is Paige onto something? Because the weeks that she did pick up the quarterback against the Dallas Cowboys, she went on the win streak, right? So let's take a look at every quarterback that has played the Dallas Cowboys just to see if Paige in fact does know ball. Week 1, the Cowboys played the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, his second highest score of the entire season with 24 points. Week 2, the Cowboys played the Giants against Russell Wilson, who has been arguably one of the worst quarterbacks this season. Literally got demoted, I'm pretty sure got traded, is now just kind of a backup guy on the sideline, making sure people are getting up off the field on time. It was his highest game of the season with 36 points. Week 3, we went on to play the Cowboys versus the Bears. Caleb Williams, his highest score of the entire season with 37 points. At this point, we move into week 4. This is where Joe Burrow's injured. Paige has tried Jared Goff, but now she is adopting the strategy of picking up the quarterback that is playing the Cowboys. Week 4 versus the Packers. Jordan Love, guess what? His highest scoring game of the entire season with 32 points. Week 5 versus the Jets, Paige picks up Justin Fields. It's his second highest score of the entire season with 29 points. And then, of course, like I said, this past week, Paige did not pick up Bryce Young, but it was his second highest game as well with 24 points. Guys, I was looking through this. It sent me down the rabbit hole. I looked further. I looked deeper. And the more I found, the more things I saw. I saw Paige has been more active on the entire waiver wire than anyone else. She has more transactions on the waiver wire than anybody else. She doesn't necessarily have the highest points than anybody else, but she has been consistently making valuable changes. She's been pulling people out, putting people in that are consistently scoring higher than the people that she's pulling out. Guys, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here, but all I can say definitively is, unfortunately, Paige knows ball. So let's take a look at the standings for the weekend. We got Dirt Diggers, who once again is the only team with a 5-1 record. Tied up for second, we've got Cheddar's Enjoyer and Chum Bucket knocking Paige out of that tied for second place. Tied for third place, of course, we got Winning the Jets, Booze Clues, and Butt Dog. And then tied for fourth, we've got Gravy Worm, Stillwall, and Baja Blasters, and Triple Dipper bringing up the rear. The spread is starting to increase. Playoffs are getting closer. I got my first note that with Jakey's win, he now has like a 30% chance of making playoffs or something. Oscar, we all know, is going to make playoffs. We don't need to worry about that. That's all we got for you guys this week. Plenty of questions that still need to be answered. Will CeeDee Lamb be back? Will Josh Allen continue to be him? Will Paige continue to pick up quarterbacks that are going against the Cowboys and continue to look great? Even though, now that I'm thinking about it, Paige did get absolutely blown out this week. Does that discredit the entire thought of Paige knowing ball?